Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating view hidden right there in the ancient biblical texts. It's a view that completely redefines the origins of evil and, frankly, the actual purpose of the Messiah. It is literally a massive paradigm shift, so let's get right into it.
So, let's kick things off with a huge question. What if the origin of evil wasn't just a single event, but a structured, multidimensional cosmic war? I know it kind of challenges a lot of our cultural assumptions right out of the gate, but as we'll see, it's exactly what the ancient source material points toward.
You know, a lot of us grew up with that classic traditional Sunday school view, right? A single fall by humans in a garden leading to some abstract inherited corruption. But the ancient texts actually map out a much stranger, much denser reality. We're talking about three specific structural rebellions by both supernatural and human agents that completely shattered the cosmos.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the unseen cosmic architecture. Second, the three rebellions of Genesis. Third, Satan, demons, and death. And finally, the unified cosmic reversal.
Starting off with Section 1, the unseen cosmic architecture, and redefining the divine council.
Now, to really grasp this, we have to understand the ancient paradigm of an unseen realm that's populated by intelligent spiritual beings. Take the Hebrew word Elohim. The sources show it's essentially a place of residence, denoting inhabitants of the spiritual realm. It's not a term representing a metaphysical equal to Yahweh. Understanding Elohim this way is absolutely crucial because it completely dissolves those supposed contradictions between monotheism and a populated spiritual cosmos. Basically, Yahweh is an Elohim, but no other Elohim is Yahweh. Make sense?
And this brilliant lexical nuance completely flips our view of Eden, too. Check out the Hebrew word nahash. It actually has a triple semantic meaning: serpent, diviner, and shining one. So the entity in Eden wasn't just a literal talking garden snake. No way. The texts are describing a luminous, divinatory guardian cherub, a literal member of the divine council, rebelling against his commission.
Okay, moving right along to Section 2, three rebellions of Genesis and how the cosmos fractured.
So the ancient sources track the corruption of reality through a chronological sequence of rebellions. It starts at the dawn of humanity in Eden, then it significantly escalates in the pre-flood era of Genesis 6, which involves those supernatural beings known as the Watchers. And finally, the third fracture happens in the post-flood era at the Babel allotment.
The sources basically boil pages of ancient theology down to a rule of three. Three catastrophes resulting in three distinct consequences. First, Eden brought the dominion of death. Then, the Watchers introduced cultural corruption, bringing in illicit technologies and warfare. And finally, Babel wasn't just a language mix-up. It resulted in geopolitical and territorial captivity, where God literally disinherited the nations, allotting them to subordinate Elohim, who then corrupted their rule.
Let's dive into Section 3, Satan, demons, and death, the adversary's evolution.
Okay, when digging into the sources, this specific number completely blew my mind. 0. There are exactly 0 references in the Hebrew Bible to a personal entity named Satan as the cosmic enemy of God. 0.
I know, right? If that's surprising, just watch how the adversary actually evolves in the texts. Hasatan was originally a generic prosecutorial office within the divine council. It was a job title, not a proper name. But over time, the texts show this adversarial function eventually merging with that original luminous rebel from Eden. Once he was cast down to the dirt, his domain became the underworld, and he earned titles like Beelzebul, the Lord of the Dead. So the New Testament proper name Satan is actually this progressive accumulation of all those dark roles.
But what about demons then? Because this is a massive paradigm shift. According to the Second Temple Jewish worldview, demons are entirely distinct from fallen angels. They are actually the disembodied spirits of the dead Nephilim, the giant hybrid offspring of the Watchers. They're permanently displaced upon death, and they just wander the earth seeking embodiment. Suddenly, all those ancient accounts of spirits being associated with tombs, illness, and having a terror of the abyss, they make perfect sense.
And what's really wild is that these spiritual realities actually had literal physical addresses. Just look at the cosmic geography. Mount Hermon was the actual site where the Watchers descended. Then you have Bashan, the land of the giant clans, which was considered the entry to the underworld. And Caesarea Philippi, specifically Pan's Grotto, was known in the ancient world as the gates of hell. It's like the unseen realm had literal geographical headquarters right here on Earth.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, the unified cosmic reversal, the counterstruct.
Knowing this geography literally changes how we read everything. Jesus deliberately staged his transfiguration on Mount Hermon, and he declared victory at Caesarea Philippi, right smack at the gates of hell. Standing in these specific locations wasn't random. It was a deliberate, rhetorical invasion. He was basically planting his flag on the enemy's most significant strongholds.
As you'll see, the ancient texts build toward this incredibly satisfying narrative symmetry known as Christus Victor, the victorious Christ. The Messiah perfectly undoes all three of the cosmic fractures. Think about it. He defeats the Edenic dominion of death through his resurrection. He counters the Watcher's cultural corruption through exorcisms in Pentecost, and he completely undoes Babel's geopolitical captivity through his ascension in the Great Commission, officially reclaiming the disinherited nations.
When you have that cosmic context, passages like this one become absolutely monumental. He disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame, triumphing over them by the cross. The cross wasn't just a pardon for sin. It was a strategic deception. It was a massive cosmic victory that literally humiliated these corrupted principalities, and it turned the adversary's own domain of death right into the very instrument of his defeat.
We've covered a lot of ground today, reframing a very familiar narrative from a private transaction into a massive, multi-dimensional war. So, what does this all mean for us? Knowing the cross was a decisive victory in a grand cosmic counterstrike, how will you participate in reclaiming the world around you? Thanks for diving into this fascinating source material with me today on The Explainer. I'll see you next time.